and that's my photo, but that's not my name. And they just like had a firm belief
Oh my
that it
God.
wasn't their name.
This makes people go crazy.
How'd they do that?
So basically, it was just through hypnotic suggestion, and this is all a lot of this stuff was hypnosis. So the LSD stuff is, there's plenty of stuff on that where they basically just fucked with the chemicals in your head and just wanted to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But this stuff was where they were directly changing a person's will into do something that they wanted to do, that the government wanted to do. So there was stuff
Through
like,
the phone.
Through the phone.
Yeah, so they would have
Damn phones, man.
so they would answer a phone and they would have a seemingly normal conversation, but during the conversation a handler would mention a code word and it would switch them off, and
that's so weird.
they'd do whatever they were supposed to do.
That's just like Winter Soldier from the Avengers.
Yes,
yeah, so very much like the Manchurian Candidate,
Yes,
all that stuff.
definitely.
So apart from being convinced that they had a different name, they were also used to set up a fake explosive device in a room. Again, like these assassins, basically these sleeper assassins, you just trigger and then would go into a room where they were supposed to find a target and set off an explosive.
I'm sorry, but this is so crazy considering like every week there's 20,000 gun shootings in our country.
Yeah, it makes you
it
think.
makes you think, like, is somebody just calling them on the phone and triggering them and,
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't know, but I definitely have several friends who would 100% agree with that. They would be like, yes, that is 100% happening. Every single one of them has a connection to the military-industrial complex. Every single one of them has mental illness. It's very interesting if you look into all that stuff. I have no idea.
And they always have a backstory.
They always have a backstory.
And then, of course, the other people around them didn't know, but someone knows.
Yeah.
They always have a backstory.
Yeah.
And
That's some controversial shit right there.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, not completely too far out there as well.
And it doesn't even have to be the government complex. It could be somebody who just has that power, right?
Yeah.
It
Right,
could
like a
be-
splinter group, like a different organization
Exactly.
that's against, like America wants to do something for somebody, gets to a certain person and makes them do something terrible for
Exactly.
their agenda.
Yeah.
All the world's a stage.
Yeah. So another interesting thing that they were able to get people to do is to go into a room and look at a document, say. They would call these people cameras. They look into a document. They could briefly glance at this document and then be able to go back to the handler and give them a detailed summary of exactly what they saw. It was like they could take a snapshot with their mind.
Huh.
And it wasn't that they had like a photographic memory. They were just hypnotically able to do that. It's like when you hypnotically regress to an event or something and you're able to recall things that you couldn't remember previously because your mind has stored it somewhere. But, it's hard to recall that unless you're hypnotically, induced into that
It's
state.
kind of interesting.
Bring
That,
it back.
like your whole life you've been recording, but you can't access it necessarily.
Right. And the whole time they would go they would be triggered into this thing, and when they would come out of the trigger, had complete amnesia. They would have no idea what they just did.
And, like missing time.
Yeah. So there's one situation of a subject who was terrified of firearms, guns. She didn't want to touch them, didn't want to be around them. Absolutely fucking terrified of them.
Oh.
She was sent into a room, triggered, and when she was triggered, what she was supposed to do is find a gun in a table, operate the gun, and shoot someone with it. And she pulled the trigger, click, click, click. There was no bullets in it, it was just a test. Put the gun back and thinking that she had killed someone. And then come back out, they took her out of the state, and she had no idea what she just did. And they tried to give her a gun
So
again, and she was like,
scary.
"No, I'm not touching gun. I already told you I'm not
so
touching a
weird.
gun."
And this experiment, MKUltra, happened during the 60s, right? Am I correct?
50s, actually.
Oh.
50s all the way up until the 70s, yeah.
Yeah. So
Apparently they stopped
this-
then, but
yeah.
Right.
No way. Data's data. It
wonder
just
if-
becomes more high tech.
Oh, yeah, they're better at it now than they've ever been. They can just do it so much better and faster and quicker and more precise.
Right.
I wonder if she had guilt. Even though she doesn't remember doing it, I wonder if she still acts like somebody who shot
That would be an
somebody.
interesting question.
Yeah, I
A lot
don't
of
know.
these people tried to take this case to court that were affected. I'm not sure if it was
Right.
these 19-year-old girls, but there was one specific woman who was like completely tortured, like to do sexual acts and stuff like this. And she took
Yeah.
it to the court, and it just got bypassed, got stuck under the rug.
Really?
But she could feel something was wrong, which is why she
acted like someone who had trauma but couldn't understand it.
But she couldn't understand.
that-
Which is a real thing, by the way. Just a quick tangent.
Yeah.
Babies, if something horrible happens to you between 0 and 2, even something as not that horrible as your parents getting divorced,
It
you will
sticks with
still
you.
act like someone who had trauma, even though you don't even remember it. You will act like that. You will have
Yeah,
trauma
that's
symptoms.
crazy. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Well, I was just going to say that torture thing is where they would used to I mean, that's how they create the split personality,
Right.
where they would create an alter, they call it, of your personality that was someone completely different. And it was through like horrible fucking torture, sexual torture,
Yeah.
just to the point where you would just for your brain to be able to survive,
You have to disconnect.
the disconnect, and it would create someone else, like multiple personalities, and they would try and induce that in people. It's just fucking
Jeez,
insane.
who are the guys who run these programs? Like, how do they go home at night? Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that to people. You really have to convince yourself that you're doing it for the greater good, that this is for the state, and even though you're doing something evil overall, it's actually positive, or you're a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Well,
what I mean? It's
I
one or
think
the
it's
other.
both. I mean, I think that like they're brainwashed by their own system, right?
Well, when
Yeah,
you were
I think
just quickly, when you were talking about like the orgasmic thing,
right.
there was another point where they were actually experimenting with putting electrodes into people's brains in different areas and trying to trigger things, where they would actually trigger movements in people, like involuntary movements.
Right.
Like dry humping?
And they could all, yeah, just hump the couch.
I knew it.
But they were like, they would almost, I think they got to the point where they could kind of control movements in people.
Yeah. But they
In the
don't
way
need
they
to do
wanted.
that anymore now because it's 2019. They don't need to like actually hypnotize anybody, right? They just send out a signal. They know what part of the brain they have to hit.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And it's like hands free. There's no traces. There's no one to bring to
Right.
court. You have no one to blame because you're like, I don't know why I did that.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you
Right?
cut that? Those
And not
poor
just that-
souls committing weird crimes and like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. No one believes them, and they just
Yeah.
go the rest of their life as a dirtbag. Their whole family thinks they're horrible, but
Right.
really they just got like technologically, like manipulated.
And not just like physically, but also there was a quote, there was 11-year-old boy
Oh, cool.
that they were testing on with electrodes in his brain.
Oh, it just
And they-
makes me want to throw up.
And they flicked the switch in this kid's head, fried a section of his brain,
Who can do that?
and just
Sorry.
and they were able to flip his sexual identity. So all of a sudden he thought he was a girl, just from this from like being zapped all of a sudden. in
Like,
this
how are
certain
these
part of
people
his
not in
brain.
jail? You know, like just being able to just I don't know.
Yeah, and he was
Makes me
like
sick.
expressing his desire, like, oh, when I grow up, I want to marry the man of my dreams and stuff. And then I think they were able to flick him back again too.
Thank God. Let's not mess with people's. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just terrible.
and there was so there's another one as well where they were able to hook up the electrodes into a certain part of the brain and be able to induce extreme emotions, like extreme anger in one.
Huh.
In one.
I know a lot of those people.
My
Yeah.
family can do that to me pretty quickly.
Yeah, just like
It just takes one comment. I go home and all of a sudden my mom or dad says something, or my brother. Next thing you know, I'm apeshit angry.
yeah, right. just like this Hulk fucking smash rage all of a
Yeah.
sudden that you just flick the switch and bang into. But also they were able to go the other way and induce like euphoria and sexual gratification
Yeah.
and orgasm eventually
Yeah.
as well. Just
Obviously.
by hitting
They got it
certain
down.
buttons. Like they had
Nice.
certain buttons that were hitting certain areas of the brain, and it would induce different things in them.
We're talking about a lot of dark stuff, and I know we're we're kind of making a joke out of it. I think it's something if you are interested in, you should check it out. But I just want to leave one final note for everybody because I mean we could do a whole episode on MKUltra. I mean the studies, like you said, almost went on for like 20 years.
barely
It's-
even scratched the surface on this. Yeah.
It's awful.
I just picked up a couple of things.
I just wanted to leave something with everybody. So you're probably thinking, okay, I don't want to go through this episode and then be scared to go to bed at night because something might come in and zap me and make me do things. But the one thing that you can do to protect yourself from people mind controlling you is to self-empower yourself. Now, what does that mean? That's not some new age crap that I'm just making up. That means that you don't need other people's energy to survive. Like you've literally know yourself, know thyself, which is a very old term. You know your emotional triggers. You know your past. You are completely grounded all the time. Like you don't need other people to survive. You have empathy. Like you're a complete person by yourself. That takes a lot of work. Everybody works on it, or people don't work on it. But if you do work on it, it takes a long time. That is the only thing that can protect you from devices, electronic devices, technology, or people specifically trying to manipulate you. That's one of the things you can do. And of course, it's a long journey, but there is hope. You can fully be your own human being and understand your own emotions and be able to control them, then nothing can control you.
Yeah,
Cool.
they can control your biological body maybe, but if you're a pure consciousness, you can disconnect from that and understand that what's happened to you is you're just a meat body robot, and that you can, whatever's happening, you can ultimately have control over.
You can have control over it, 100%. All right, well, that's all the time we have for Cosmic Cantina. Oh my God, we could keep going. I got to get home before something zaps me. All right, you guys, have a great night, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Later.